Here we go. All right, so hey everybody. We are going to start today's class off, or later on in the class, we're going to talk about the health belief model. It's week 4, yay. You guys have made it through about 1 month of the NPH program, so that's something definitely to be proud of. Okay, so today we're going to start class with the usual Kahoot, and I'm just going to ask that instead of you guys joining using like your first name or both your first name and your last name, to actually use your unique name when joining. So your unique name is the first part of your UMichigan email address. So like for me, my email is jnbest@umich.edu. For you all, it's whatever is before the @ symbol for your email address. Then we're going to have the lecture. We're going to do a group activity. You guys will report out. We're going to debrief. There will be an exit ticket. So, you know, basically like what we've been doing, just continuing it for this upcoming week, upcoming class. Okay, so now we're going to transition to the Kahoot activity. Just so that you guys know, I have added additional time. So you guys now have about 60 seconds for each question. And as always, as we sort of talked about previously, you guys are encouraged to post any questions that you guys have about the Kahoot in the chat, of course, but we also want you guys to continue to use the discussion board that's on Canvas. So be sure to post any questions that you guys like get wrong and like really want to understand why you guys missed these questions, to post it on the discussion board.
Janae, just a quick note, you're sharing the PowerPoint screen instead of the Kahoot screen.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep. And while Janae is putting up the proper screen, I just want to really acknowledge the email that she sent out on Friday and all of the attempts that, you know, I think we're trying to make sure that folks feel like they're in community, that we're getting answers, because it's a fast moving space on Zoom with all of these technical aspects. So we're really trying to make sure that everyone is getting their needs met, forming community, getting a chance to know each other as well as the content. So really grateful for Janae and the work that she's done there, and hopeful that you all will take up that wonderful opportunity. So thanks again, Janae.
Whoever Lucky Dingo is, could you post in the chat your unique name, or either shoot me an email so that I can be able to link your Kahoot responses to your unique name later on when I'm compiling the scores. Please and thank you. Okay. 6 more people. Okay. And just for, you know, like, just so you guys know, the reason why I'm asking you guys to include your unique name here is so that, you know, it'll be easier for me to track your scores to you. At the end of every Kahoot game, I am compiling you all's scores. So that ultimately at the end of, towards the end of the course, we'll be able to tell you guys who the like grand total winner is, so that you guys can get a special prize. Okay, let's see. How is the adequacy of a theory most often assessed? Through an evaluation of its internal consistency, the extent to which it's broadly relevant, its plausibility of fitting with prevailing theories, all of the above. Basically, it's asking like, how do we know that a theory is like reliable, that it's valid, that it is relevant? Okay, yeah, good job, guys. Okay. A theory's ecological validity is the extent to which it conforms to observable reality when empirically tested. True or false? I think the key part of this question is the word validity. Okay. The social learning theory suggests that epitome of skills and reinforcement may more directly determine behavior. True or false? I think these questions are like a little bit more straightforward than the ones from last week. So hopefully, you guys aren't like too frazzled and that things are starting to make a little bit more sense. Okay, that one's a little bit more tricky. All right, cool. What does the health belief model do? Stresses a reduction of environmental barriers to behavior, emphasizes perceptions of social process, matches interventions to cognitive behavioral stages. Um, More about this in a few minutes. But yeah, let's see how you guys do. Let's see what your basic level of knowledge is of the health belief model. Okay, this one was definitely more tricky than the rest of them. Okay, all right. Also, you could have argued that another answer was pretty similar to being correct as well, but we'll talk about that later. What have primary care providers traditionally relied on to change unhealthy habits? Talking to an immediate family member about the patient's problem, informational and expert power, telling personal stories of their own health issues. And this question is like, to me, really cool because it sort of acknowledges differences in like the medical perspective to trying to intervene and create behavior change versus the health behavior methods of trying to get people to change their behavior. Okay, good job, class. Oh, okay, still in the lead, still in the lead, all right. Finish the statement by Green. If we want more evidence-based practice, we need more what? We need more practice-based evidence. We need more research-based evidence. We need more theory-based evidence, or we need more diversified-based evidence. Hint, the answer is kind of in the question. Okay. When concepts are developed or adopted for use in a particular theory, they are called constructs. True or false? And Dr. Anderson kind of addressed this in her first lecture, I believe, first or second. And I'm gonna sort of reinforce this concept, later on in the class in my PowerPoint. Also, I want to acknowledge that like the idea of a concept and a construct are fairly similar. So if you're still having a hard time understanding the difference between the two, it's not just you. Okay, cool.
And again, we'll continue to reinforce this throughout the class, so no worries. Good work on that one, y'all.
In the health belief model, relationships between constructs have not been well defined. True or false? And this is sort of subjective, but it's like a commonly like debated point, like whether or not the constructs within the health belief model and like how they're interconnected are like clearly explained or defined. This is actually, well, let me stop talking. Right. So this is actually a limitation of the health belief model, that their constructs are not like defined as to how like they're interrelated. Using the stages of change model, which of the following is not a major strategy often used in clinical settings? Motivational, instructional, directional, or behavioral? Okay. For individuals believing the risk is small for an illness, what is the best intervention strategy based off of the health belief model? Provide information about benefits for adopting behavior change. Identify the individual's barriers to adopting behavior change. Specify the risk and consequences of the illness. Identify steps for the individual to implement behavior change. For this, I like always think about how would we get people, how would we get kids in high school to take their sexual health seriously? Like what strategies do people use in like high school sex ed courses to get kids to use condoms? Okay, cool. Okay, podium, all right. Okay.
Great work, everyone. Awesome job. And I hope that you saw that last bit. We get a chance to see which questions are tough so we can integrate that back into what it is that we'll be teaching and instructing. So we'll take that information, we'll take the other questions that you all have, and we'll also try to put that on the discussion board. So a lot of ways of trying to address what might be tricky, but great work today.
Yes. And I'm trying my best to resume the screen share and having a tad bit of difficulty. So let me just try this one more time. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay. Let's see if I can move this down. Okay, so I'm going to start with a brief overview of what I plan to share today. So the health belief model is a frequently used theory in public health. It will definitely be something that you all will need to use or just know for in the future. So try your best to be attentive, take good notes, because this is a theory that is definitely fundamental to public health and specifically to HBHU work. I want you all to walk away from today's class understanding the basics of why theories are important and why the health belief model ultimately is useful. Also, you all should be able to explain the 6 concepts of the health belief model and give examples of these in action by the end of presentation today. I also try to leave quite a bit of time at the end of the PowerPoint so for questions. So feel free to put questions in the chat. And then at the end of me presenting, you all will have the chance to be able to unmute yourselves and ask questions if time permits, which it should. So first, I will give you all a brief overview of why is Kahoot making sounds? 1 second. So sorry about that, guys. Okay. Okay, so I'll start with a brief overview of why theories broadly are important. We sort of covered this before, but it's always good to reiterate information. I'm going to share some important terminology with you all that you all probably already understand, but I just want to double check and confirm. I'm going to talk about the history of the health belief model, introduce you all to the health belief model, and then share a few limitations of the model. Because as we know, there is no perfect model, there is no perfect theory. Things, always have room for improvement. So before I jump into explaining the health belief model, I wanted to start by explaining why theories are important. So theories can tell you why people are not engaging in more positive health behaviors and what you need to know before developing an intervention or a public policy. Theories can help you to understand how to shape program strategies to reach people and organizations. Theories can tell you what needs to be evaluated to demonstrate program or policy effectiveness. You will learn more about this in your program evaluation class next year. But essentially, theory is valuable because it helps us to make sure that our efforts as public health practitioners are well informed. It helps us to ensure that ultimately our efforts are effective. So I want to orient you all to some important vocabulary that you all should understand with regard to theory. I want to circle back to this because I know there were some questions when Dr. Anderson introduced these definitions last week. So first, a concept is a major idea or a major idea of a theory, which is generally pretty broad. Constructs are more specific, and a construct is a concept that has been developed for a particular use in a specific theory. Variables are the operational form of constructs, which are very precise. So variables are like the more specific of the three, and concepts would be the most broad. Variables specify how a construct should be measured. And so for today's class, I want you all to focus on the concept of the health belief model and the constructs within the model. Additionally, just know that variables may shift depending on how you choose to apply a specific theory. So here's a bit of history about the health belief model. It was originated in the 1950s and was started by 3 social psychologists in the U.S. Public Health Service. They noticed a low engagement rate for TB screenings that they were trying to implement. And so these TB screenings were actually located in neighborhoods. They had clinics placed in neighborhoods where people were, and the attendance was still very low. So one of the psychologists noticed that it had to do with motivation and ultimately had to do with how people were engaging with what he decided to come up with as 4 constructs originally. And then over time, in the 1980s, the model was updated to incorporate the role of self-efficacy in decision-making, and then eventually something called cues to action, which I'll get to later, was added to the model. And the health belief model, you should note, is one of the most widely used individual health behavior theories in public health, and it attempts to explain or to predict human health behavior choices. And it's believed to be one of the first ever behavioral health theories, which makes it really significant. Also, I just want to note that, like, personally, this is my favorite theory, because, like, as an undergrad psychology major, I'm like constantly, even now, like personally and professionally, trying to like analyze people's behavior, trying to analyze people's health behavior, and to gain an understanding of people's like behavior choices. And then also, like, the health belief model was actually the first model that I was ever introduced to, which sort of makes it my favorite by default. Okay, so the health belief model consists of four constructs which represent the perceived threat of the health outcome, such as, let's say, HIV infection, and the net benefits of engaging in health promotion behaviors, such as condom usage. These constructs include perceived susceptibility, um, include perceived severity, perceived benefits, and perceived barriers. So like these are like the four like essential components of the model, that I really want you guys to walk away with understanding. And these are called constructs because they were developed for specific use within the health belief model. So these four concepts were proposed as accounting for people's readiness to act. So essentially, the health belief model is sort of trying to move people toward action ultimately. And whatever that action looks like may differ depending on whatever the health behavior is that you are specifically interested in. So in sticking with the example of the health outcome of HIV, the broad concept of the health belief model could be used to assess people's readiness to take charge of their sexual health and engage in HIV prevention. There's another concept which is called cues to action, which comments on people taking action toward a particular behavior. Cues to action address the myriad of factors that may trigger someone to act on a certain health behavior, such as like a celebrity sharing their HIV status publicly, or as we saw recently, Chadwick Boseman passing due to, I believe it was colon cancer. So that definitely triggered, I know a lot of people, a lot of Black men in my circle to go and to get screening and to be more proactive when it came to their prostate health or colon health. So then there is the concept of self-efficacy, which is one's confidence in their ability to perform an action successfully. It's basically saying, can I be successful in completing this behavior change? To do this, there need to be small and manageable steps to build someone's confidence. So strategies to increase an individual's self-efficacy should include tools to reduce anxiety about behavior change. It's important to note that self-efficacy and self-esteem are not the same thing. Okay, so I haven't really been going for that long, so I think we're kind of good on a break, but feel free to stand up, to stretch, to do whatever you need to do to, make sure that you're able to be attentive and to focus, get some water, whatever you need, but I'm gonna power through. Okay, so perceived susceptibility is one's own opinion of the chances of getting a condition. So when I think about this concept, it sort of means, does the individual have people around them that have a specific condition? Are the people who are in commercials and advertisements talking about the health condition reflective of this person's demographic? How does the person essentially view their personal risk? For example, with COVID, a lot of young people originally, I would say, had a low perceived susceptibility, or possibly a low perceived likelihood of getting COVID back in March because of the way that the virus was originally framed in the media, being that it was framed and like original information was that, oh, like, you have to generally be in a high risk group to be more at risk. And people did not have like a realistic perception of their risk. Some people, arguably. Perceived severity is one's opinion of how serious a condition and its consequences are. What is the person's understanding of the severity of contracting a specific disease? Do they feel that it would be no big deal if they contracted the disease? Does the person understand the severe consequences of not taking action. Perceived benefits addresses one's belief in the efficacy of the advised action to reduce risk or seriousness of impact. So it's asking questions like, does the person believe that eating healthy will ultimately lower their blood pressure? Does the person believe that there will be any positive outcomes that can occur from them engaging in this said behavior change? Perceived barriers includes one's opinion of the tangible and psychological costs of the advised action. So does the person have faith or confidence in their ability to access healthy food? What barriers does the person ultimately perceive? Perhaps barriers could be transportation, or barriers could be not knowing how to cook the healthy food, or not having the time to cook the food items. Essentially, it's saying, do the pros or benefits outweigh the cons or the barriers? And then cues to action include strategies to activate readiness, so strategies to move people toward change, which could include a daily reminder on someone's phone to eat X amount of fruits and veggies, or an accountability partner checking in with someone about their eating habits. Is there an external event that motivates behavior change? The ultimate goal is to make people believe that they can make behavior change. And there's lots of creativity when it comes to how to influence someone's cues to action. So I just thought it would be a good idea to show you all a visual representation or visual depiction of the health belief model. So this essentially shows that modifying factors, which include like age, gender, ethnicity, these modifying factors are things that are on the individual level that impact individual beliefs, which include things such as like personality and knowledge. And so the idea is that these individual beliefs include perceived susceptibility, severity of disease, which impacts a person's threat to disease, perceived benefits, perceived barriers, and perceived self-efficacy. It's important to note that the health belief model focuses on what individuals believe, and not necessarily like what the actual barrier is or the actual benefit. It's all about perception. And these individual beliefs likely will impact action. These individual beliefs impact the likelihood of behavior change, which ultimately is impacted by cues to action. So this is sort of like the idea that, I just wanted to show you all how these different things are ultimately connected, and that these different constructs are not disjointed, that they all sort of lead or impact one another in a sense. So I'll walk you all through a personal example, and I'll apply the health belief model to my personal willingness to exercise. So like something that I don't do, and I know that I should as a public health professional. I know that I should work out more often. But so the modifying behaviors or modifying factors that relate to me personally would include my age. I'm young, I'm able-bodied, and I'm a student. And then relating to my individual behaviors, my individual beliefs, I see perceived barriers to engaging and working out to be like time, my inability to physically go to the gym because of COVID-related concerns, and my perceived self-efficacy is low because whenever I try to work out in the past, I usually fall off and don't necessarily follow through. And then given these individual beliefs, my likelihood of behavior change is a little bit low. However, if there were cues to action, such as if I had an accountability partner, if I were to engage in wellness coaching, then my individual beliefs may change, which means that I may have a higher likelihood of behavior change, and ultimately finally finding a consistent workout regimen. Okay, so when learning about theories, I personally find it helpful to critique the theories that I learn about. I sort of do this in an effort to understand the shortcomings of individual theories. And ultimately, through critiquing these theories, I'm able to understand why certain theories may be helpful in studying, may be helpful or may not be helpful in studying specific health issues. So this is just sort of why I find it important to talk about the limitations of different models and limitations in general of study, so that we know, like, you know, what to follow, what to leave, what to take, and what could be ultimately helpful in our own practice and research within public health. So based on the limitations of theories, you all may decide that certain theory is not appropriate for the health behavior you are seeking to change or examine in your work. So there are several limitations of the health belief model which limit its utility. These are just a few that I selected that I wanted to highlight. But first, the health belief model does not take into account behaviors that are habitual and thus may inform the decision-making process to accept a recommended action. So like, let's say, for example, behaviors that are habitual, such as smoking, may not rely solely on individuals' beliefs in order to move someone forward toward behavior change. Because we know that, like, you know, people that smoke are likely aware of some of the negative health outcomes and may have had cues to action, or may have had family members try to talk to them, or may have seen like the news advertisements, you know, talking about the harms of smoking. But smoking is not an easy behavior to quit. We know this as public health practitioners. And so the next thing is that the health belief model does not take into account the behaviors that are performed for non-health related reasons, such as social desirability. So for example, the health belief model doesn't like actually think about or like take into account the fact that people are not just engaging in mask wearing because they are trying to be proactive about their health, or because like they want to like protect other people. Often, you know, people may engage in mask wearing just because of the fact that they don't want to be chastised for going against the social norm, or it like doesn't like think about the fact that, like, you know, people who decide to ultimately quit smoking may not be doing it just because of the fact that, like, you know, they like know that it's not good for their health. They may be doing it because they know that, like, you know, they can't just go to a restaurant anymore and smoke openly, or they know that, you know, their friends and family may chastise them for continuing to smoke. Also, the health belief model is ultimately more descriptive than explanatory and does not suggest a strategy for changing health-related actions. So more about this on the next slide, but it's really just a way for us to understand people's perception of their ability to actually move toward change and move toward healthfulness. It doesn't really give you a way to exactly shift these different beliefs, but it more so like makes you aware of what these beliefs are and perceptions are. Also, the model assumes that cues to action are widely prevalent in encouraging people to act. So we know this is like not always the case. The availability of cues to action vary. For example, I mean, even though like it's common knowledge among a lot of us that, like, you know, condom usage is so valuable in like preventing like the spread of STIs, but not everyone has that knowledge, or not everyone has like the cue to action of like receiving that knowledge in health education, or like receiving like cues to action via advertisements or what have you.
Janae, can I interrupt and ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to know, is a cue to action kind of like a nudge type of thing? Like, is that what it is? Like, is it like, are they similar, or are they two different things?
Is a cue to action similar or different than like a nudge, is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. Yeah, a cue to action definitely is sort of like a nudge or like a trigger toward a particular action. And so what that may look like could vary. So like for example, like cues to action that I set for myself, like so that like I go to bed on time. I have an alarm that reminds me to go to bed at like 11 o'clock each day. Or cues to action could be, you know, like telling a friend to like remind you to engage in a certain behavior. So it's like whatever that may look like to influence a person actually to like act, like whatever would cue them to actually act in a more healthy way toward whatever behavior it is that you're trying to influence.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the health belief model, another limitation is that it's only an individual theory and can't be applied to social and environmental issues. So that's just like something like keep in mind, depending on like what you're trying to study. The health belief model may or may not be appropriate ultimately. Another big limitation is that it does not take into account disparities in knowledge among populations. I sort of touched on this earlier, but some people may not know that smoking is bad for you, although like to most of us, it's now common knowledge, but to everybody, it may not be common knowledge. And that the health belief model seeks to make people knowledgeable about behavior change. So through the health belief model, we should ultimately be able to increase people's knowledge.
Janae, can I just jump in super quick on that point?
Yeah.
Just to really, I think, highlight something that just came up, right? So if we're thinking about smoking in particular, this idea that it's common knowledge that smoking is like harmful to you or not even fashionable anymore, right? Because there are waves of like what seems cool, right? But like just the sheer idea that you're going to be unhealthy engaging in this behavior, there are studies indicating the sheer number of signs in inner city communities relative to other communities. So I might be cued to action based on the environment. So even though the health belief model doesn't necessarily blend well with some of the models we learned about last week with respect to ecological structures, the idea that I might be cued more to action because I see Joe Cool on this camel sign, and when I walk into the store, there's a plastered sign in front of it at a rate of 2 or 3 times more than that of other people, might be something that triggers me then to engage in that behavior. So it's a way of thinking about what Janae is saying with respect to some of the things we've already started to learn, that even though it doesn't incorporate these factors, you can't forget them, that they do impact things like cues.
That was a great point, Dr. Anderson. So I just want to talk about a little bit about like when action occurs and like, you know, in HBHE, we're sort of trying to constantly move people toward action. So I want to wrap up by explaining how we ultimately can move people toward action. And although Dr. Anderson will be sharing more about this next class period about the application of all these constructs, I wanted to share what the health belief model says would need to occur for a person to take action toward a health promoting behavior, such as like working out more frequently or washing their hands more often. So these things include believing that they are more susceptible or at risk for disease. So this sort of like comments on perceived susceptibility. They need to like believe the condition is serious, believe that something can be done to reduce the threat. They need to understand the benefits to taking action and believe the benefits to taking action outweigh the barriers and that the barriers are not strong enough. If a person does not think that the health outcome is serious and that they could potentially be impacted, or does not believe that they have the self-efficacy to engage in preventative behaviors, it will be difficult to move them toward action. This is why it's really important to critique how diseases are framed, to critique how media represents different diseases or illnesses, and to think about ways to empower individuals and communities to take actionable steps toward their healthfulness while also addressing social determinants of health. There are specific strategies and interventions that can be implemented to influence these beliefs based on the specific health outcomes that you are dealing with. So just a few reminders. It's important to remember that this framework for behavior change is a tool. It's a theory. It's just guidelines. And then applying these theories will look different depending on your target audience. Health behavior is very complex, so we cannot just state 6 constructs and say these will work for all people. And this is like just a conclusion that we just can't make. So the theory needs to be applied to the specific population that the behavior is targeted at. There was a video that I'm going to still show you guys the video. Or Dr. Anderson, should I show the video or should I just take questions? I don't want to like run too much over time.
Yeah, I think we have time, so go right on ahead.
Okay, cool.
Would you like to hear something surprising but true? Learning about the various health behaviors.
You can't hear it?
We can't see it. It's still the PowerPoint.
What is wrong with this thing?
Silly Zoom.
Right. Okay, no, I'm just going to stop it and I'm going to start it again.
Behavior theories may be one of the most useful and exciting things you will learn in this course. Though theories may seem a little bit dry at first, and I totally get that, knowing and applying various health behavior theories is like having a sophisticated set of tools to help you achieve your goals for health promotion. After watching this video, you should have a pretty good understanding of what a theory is and why they are important in public health nutrition. Be able to justify why using an appropriate health behavior theory, or perhaps more than one, is essential to good program planning, and be able to explain the health belief model, one of the earliest health behavior theories. First, what is a theory? A theory is a systematic way of understanding things. Theories synthesize bodies of evidence into key principles that explain and predict various phenomena. Think of the theories you might have heard of already. Things like the Big Bang Theory, the theory of evolution, the theory of relativity. All these theories synthesize evidence into explanations for observations, and they enable us to make informed predictions regarding expected outcomes given a particular set of circumstances. Let's turn our attention to why theories about health behavior are so important. We want to promote health and well-being. Consider the leading causes of death in Canada. Things like cancer, heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. Our health-related behavior plays an important role in whether or not we develop these conditions. So many aspects of our behavior influence our health status, not the least of which is our dietary habits. So, understanding human behavior and designing interventions that are aligned with what we know about human behavior and behavior change can make efforts to promote health more likely to succeed. Let's take a look at one of the earliest theories of health behavior, the health belief model. This model has a lot of appeal because it's logical, simple, and it provides very useful insights into behavior and behavior change. There are 4 key constructs in the health belief model: perceived susceptibility, perceived severity, perceived benefits, and perceived barriers. Note the recurrence of the word perceived. According to the health belief model, it's our perceptions of benefits and barriers that are associated with particular actions that determine our behavior, not the real benefits and behaviors. Perceived susceptibility refers to your opinion regarding your chance of getting a particular condition. How likely do you think it is that you will develop osteoporosis, for example? Perceived severity refers to your opinion of how serious the condition would be if you were to get it. If you were to get osteoporosis, do you think that would be a mild inconvenience, or do you think it would be painful and debilitating? Perceived benefits refers to your opinion of how effective the advised action would be. For example, you may be advised that weight-bearing physical activity and appropriate calcium and vitamin D intake in the context of an overall healthy diet would promote bone health and reduce your chance of developing osteoporosis. How beneficial do you think those actions would be, both in terms of effectively preventing osteoporosis and with respect to the other benefits of those behaviors? Perceived barriers refers to your opinion of the costs or drawbacks of the advised action. Perhaps you don't like exercise, for example, or you find it really hard to fit it into your day. Maybe you don't like dairy products or swallowing supplement pills, or you don't think you can afford supplements or sufficient healthy food. These would all be barriers to your undertaking the recommended action. The health belief model notes that all these perceptions are affected by modifying factors, things such as age, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, peer groups, knowledge, and so on. So how do these perceptions come together to explain and predict behavior? Our evaluations of our perceived susceptibility for a particular condition and the perceived severity of that condition combine to create the perception of threat. If perceived threat is high, the likelihood of engaging in the health protective behavior is higher than it would be if the perception of threat was low, which might result in little motivation to change behavior. This points to one goal for health promotion programs based upon the health belief model: creating realistic perceptions of threat in the target population. Strategies for increasing perceived threat could include educational materials to increase perceived severity, or fear appeals to increase perceived susceptibility. Our evaluations of perceived benefits and perceived barriers combine to determine our response. On some level, we evaluate the pros and cons and determine whether there would be a net gain associated with this action. Do the benefits of this action outweigh the costs? This points to other tasks for health promotion programs based upon this model: to ensure the benefits of the recommended action are clearly communicated and relevant for the target population, and to develop strategies to minimize the barriers people may experience. There are two other important components of the health belief model: cues to action and self-efficacy. Cues to action serve as a trigger for behavior. Seeing a media campaign might serve as a cue to action. Others might be receiving advice, receiving a reminder from a clinic, becoming aware of bodily sensations such as feeling overly tired or experiencing dizziness, or something like illness, your own illness or that of someone you know. Exposure to these sorts of cues to action increase a person's readiness to take action. Self-efficacy is a concept originally introduced by Albert Bandura, one of the most influential psychologists of all time and a UBC grad. This concept—
I know it's a few more seconds to go, but we might need to pause to keep the wheels rolling.
Definitely. I just had a few wrap-up questions, but I have maybe like one person to answer. I just wanted you all to, at least one person to answer, how can we get Detroiters to get a flu shot using some of the constructs in the health belief model? And I want one person who generally doesn't talk or who I haven't heard from throughout the class to share. And then everyone else, please add your response to the Google Doc that I emailed you guys on Friday.
We could reduce barriers to, or reduce perceived or real barriers to getting the flu shot, like give examples of where you can get it for free or where close to home or how quickly you can get it.
Yes, that is a wonderful response. Thank you so much. Okay, now I'm gonna turn over to Dr. Anderson.
All right, well, fantastic work. Seriously, wonderful job, Janae, great job. And just again, from an orientation standpoint, this was the first of the major models. So we've been doing a lot of orientation and frameworking. So some of the larger like ideas around how we're going to start thinking about it, but this was the first individual level model. So Janae did a fantastic job of getting us ready to go. So we didn't get a chance to practice on Wednesday with the Twitter chat. And because your individual Twitter assignment is due this Wednesday, we wanted to get a chance to do some practice. So we would normally spend a little bit of time doing what Janae did, which was kind of saying a bit about some of our own personal goals, but we'll have a chance to do that with next week's theory as well. So no worries, we will get into your psyche very soon. But we wanted you to get the chance to practice Twitter, the Twitter chat with each other. And so I'm gonna drop the in-class activity link one more time in the chat, just so you'll have it. And what we're going to do is to break up into groups of 5 so that you all will get a chance to create the tweet that you were supposed to create last week. So even though you just got all that wonderful information on the health belief model, we're gonna put a quick kickstand on that so that we can go back to the social ecological model and the social determinants of health from last week. The goal is for you to be able to practice the idea of the Twitter chat without taking the exact assignment that we'll be doing on Wednesday, which is the health belief model for the Twitter chat, or I keep saying chat, I'm sorry. It's because I was doing a Twitter chat, the Twitter thread. I want you to get the practice of doing a Twitter thread without doing the exact assignment that's going to be due Wednesday. So all that to say, we just learned a fantastic HBM lesson. Put that on the left side of your like frontal lobe, just park it there. And then we're going to take the information from last week from your long-term memory and bring it back in. So again, we'll split up in groups of 5. You all will be thinking about the assignment that's due Wednesday, which if you haven't had a chance to look at the updated information on the syllabus, I've added a few more guidelines of what I'd like for you to do. So we're gonna have a 5 to 10 thread tweet. So you're gonna have 5 to 10 tweets about how, let me pull that back up. Okay, so a 5 to 10 thread tweet about how the social ecological model and the life course perspective tells us a bit about the social determinants of health related to mask wearing. So as an example, we just talked today about how cues, if we were talking about the health belief model, cues are letting me know maybe I need to take a smoke, maybe I need to buy this Coke or something, Coca-Cola or something of that sort. So with respect to the health or the social determinants of health from last week, thinking about what are some of the environmental constructs that are going to be involved in me wearing a mask? What are some of the things that I'm seeing or not seeing around me? What are some of the age-related concerns? But just think about both the models that we learned about last week with social ecological and life course perspective that are gonna let me know a thing or two about wearing a mask. So we'll break up in groups of 5, try to find a picture, try to find a link, try to put something together in your tweets that are going to help us understand and be moved, be persuaded by your argument. And again, just as a reminder of what we talked about last week, but it's on the Google Doc, things like relevant hashtags, things about politics, all of these elements that you already brought up that were really good from last week, keep those in mind as you're creating this tweet. It's just practice, get a chance to work with your group, especially if you've never done a tweet before. This will give you the opportunity just to get your feet wet. So before we break up, any quick questions that you have about what we're asking you to do right now? Okay, so it's on the Google Doc for in-class assignments. It's week 3, day 2, so that would have been last week, week 3, day 2. Janae, if you don't mind breaking folks up into groups of 5, and we'll come back at 2:15 to discuss what that process was like for you.
Yes, in order to do that, I need to be made host. I don't have that capability.
A full host. Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Let me see if I can just do it easier then from my side. I'll just do it to 11 rooms. Yep. Okay. All right. See you in a few. That's interesting. So, because you're but Zoom has to figure some of its stuff out.
Yeah, it's an annoying quirk.
Mm-hmm. Ramonda, what's going on? Is it not letting you in there?
Oh, yeah, it's not letting, there's nothing that popped up.
Oh,
sorry.
I just thought.
I'm waiting.
It says that you should be an 8. Let me try. Huh. No, it's not letting you do it. Are you sure you didn't mess up the whole Zoom for everyone in the University of Michigan?
I think I single-handedly destroyed Zoom.
I can do that. I'm gonna just throw you
I
in.
just want to go back to campus so bad. You
I
know,
know.
I'd rather like have like.
I know. I'll throw you in 11.
Okay, perfect.
See if that works.
Maybe I'll exit and come back. Maybe it's something
It's
on
saying
my
that
end.
you're not joining. Maybe there's a pop-up that you're not seeing somewhere. Is that possible? Is your screen on like small or something?
No, I'm full screen right now.
Uh-oh, Mega, what happened? What did we do wrong? Help.
I don't think you did anything wrong. I got kicked out of the Zoom and had to come back.
Oh, okay.
But I don't
Oh
see,
wait, I
I
see a
don't think I was assigned to a
place.
breakout room because of that.
Okay, Mega, let me see. All right, I see you here. I'm gonna assign you to the one Ramona just got in. So it should be up on your screen now.
Yep.
Thank you. Janae, so I don't think that they can see your response from the main thing, but that is a great question. So we can have them answer that. Caitlin, are you here? Oh, they do. They have a broadcast a message to all. Oh,
You can only see that on your end. So I was going to remind them that they can press the help button at the bottom of their screen, and that will trigger either one of us to come to their breakout room.
so okay.
If you don't mind telling me.
There is a help button at the bottom of your screen, breakout room. What?
Yeah.
Screen if you need. Great. I've never seen that before.
Also, for the record, my lecture was 17 minutes when I timed it 3 times. Which is why I asked how long did you want me to talk, because I thought I was not going to talk long enough and I was stressed. So I'm highly upset that it went long.
Hey, may I do my thing with you first before you do your thing with yourself first?
Sure.
You did an excellent, and I want to underscore, highlight, circle, asterisk, excellent job. Excellent. Like, I learned a lot. Seriously. I was really pleased and like, it was excellent. So we'll start there, okay?
Okay.
It was an excellent job for someone who does not necessarily want to go into the world of instruction. It was really well done. So I just want to commend you on that. I hope now you can also see how like the best laid plans in Zoom world just go up in smoke. Like, I don't go over like this. Like, this isn't a concern for me.
Yeah.
I know that I always have too many activities, but I pack it rather than have too few. So I'll say I don't have time to get to that, but rarely is it like a lecture that just goes over. So it is something that we have to do from a timing perspective of just being mindful, but it's nothing you should beat yourself up over at all, because you had me jump in there, you had Taz jump in, like, that is what it is.
Just confused. I really like stayed up last night, like, oh, what else can I add? How can I fill time? And then I was over. What?
No, it was excellent, and that's that on that. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
It was great. That's that. How did your weekend go? It was this, wasn't it?
I spent entirely too long trying to like work on this PowerPoint because I couldn't figure out how, like, this is part of why I'm like, I spent too long trying to figure out like ways to make the PowerPoint longer, and it took so much time, and it was over, and it's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, it was okay. I had to catch up on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to power through here.
Yeah.
I hope they sign up for All-Stars. So I have like a lot of, I really want to answer whatever questions they have. So
There weren't any that came up in the chat, which is great. That's always a great sign. So at the end today, we'll make sure that we ask people what they want to do and direct them to our new resource of the Canvas chat, which is what it's there for. So great. We'll take 7 minutes to decompress. I'll bring people back at 2:15, but I'll see you in a bit. All right, I know that was likely not enough time for folks to get fully into the thread, but talk to me a bit about the process that went into developing a tweet in and of itself. What were you thinking about? What was it like to create that tweet? Anybody want to share?
My group kind of ran into the initial problem of like what do we want the tweet to say? Like, because every tweet has to be as poignant as possible and have to get your point across like very clearly. Yeah. And we've noticed that like a lot of kids college age who still aren't wearing masks, the reason that they're not doing it is not because they don't know better, it's because they don't want to. So, or they don't want to, or they like don't think it really applies to them. There's like a lot of reasons. So it's been, for us, it was hard to find like a single reason to address in a tweet, without being like, hey, I know there's 5 million reasons you don't want to wear it, but like, here's one really good one why you should.
That's interesting. As soon as you said that, something popped into my mind, at least visually, on how I would want to address that. So I'm curious if, as you all were listening to Michaela, if there was the idea around this life perspective, or life, help me, golly. Oh, my mind is crashing.
Life course.
Thank you, life course. I was like, there's another word that goes in there. This life course perspective that popped up for you, perhaps even visually, if you wanted to depict, maybe not you, but your grandma, like if you wanted to get a picture of what it looks like over time to impact. That's one thing that popped into my mind when you were saying that as an example. What are some other perspectives that other individuals had or groups had? And thank you again for that, Michaela.
We were talking about how, like, because we know hashtags are a big part of tweets and stuff. So we were looking at different like hashtag generators and just typing in keywords like wear a mask. And then one of us found like wear a mask Michigan. And then we were like, but wait, should we consider like political, like whatever is going on in terms of that too? Because we don't want it to become like a political debate. Like we just want it to be about the message. So I think like, given that we are really thinking about this and not just like tweeting for the sake of tweeting or whatever, I think it becomes really complicated because we don't know, we have to like really do the research behind each hashtag and what organization or what campaign is backing that and all of that. So that became really difficult.
It's such a great point. And again, and I appreciate that. The goal is not to make this easy nor impossible, right? So I want there to be some time where you might feel some struggle. And I'll come back to this other point in one moment, but there's really, what you said is beautiful in that some people tweet to just tweet. Folks wake up in the morning and say like, I'm gonna drink coffee, hashtag morning move, something, right, with no thought, right? And that's just that. But for especially organizations or individuals who really want to get a message across, it takes a lot of time to craft a tweet or to think about, again, who are you @ing? What hashtag are you using? there's so much that goes into it. You also brought up a really good perspective though of a localized approach. So Michigan has some hashtags, Mask Up Michigan, Mask On Michigan. So you want to look at how are these hashtags being used? What groups does it seem to bring folks together? Again, do you want to think about it from across a different age perspective? If you're just targeting a certain age group, how would that impact people? How could you potentially market them a bit differently than you would others? Or how do you take models or theories if you're using them to target people of different groups? So again, really wonderful thoughts there. I want to underscore one thing before we kind of do a final wrap up, which is that I don't want you posting for a number of reasons, and you can choose to post whatever you want as an individual. I want to underscore that as part of this class, it is 1000% not necessary to post, and I'm going to give just a very quick indicator why. Last week, I was a part of, as you know, the Reuters Twitter chat. So for those of you that put forward some of your tweets, they were fantastic. I want to thank you again. My lab did as well. And I don't know who did what, so I just want to say thank you to anyone who participated in that. One of the tweets that I did at the end was a quick video. And I did that because Reuters was retweeting those and they were getting a lot of action. So I did a quick video, and some conservative group got a hold of it and did a number on my self-esteem at one point, and then I had to shake my head and realize that they were trying to do that, and so that's not going to get me the way that they thought that it was going to. But I'm sharing that because Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all of these places can be challenging with respect to what people do in response to what you're saying. And everything that you all are working on right now with respect to masking is not apolitical, as you've all said, and as you've been asking in the questions throughout the day today. It's not apolitical. And so posting on behalf of the class is not something that I want you to do. But if you do learn a skill set or two and you do want to apply that to your own posting, by all means, go forth and do that. So that was just my PSA for the day. Okay, I know it's 2:21, folks gotta go. So one thing that you did learn today, there were plenty of things with Janae's fantastic teaching, but one thing that you learned today. Simone shared, I learned that the HBM has many limitations, like not taking into account habitual behaviors, which I never thought about before. Thanks so much for sharing, Simone. One thing that you're gonna apply to your everyday or to your life. Four different constructs of the HBM theory and how it can be applied to multidisciplinary fields. So absolutely, it's not, as with every theory and every model that we'll be talking about, you're really trying to address a very specific behavior and how that behavior is translated or spoken about. In the video, they were talking about nutritional sciences, but it could be socio-behavioral, et cetera. So it can go across a number of different fields, professions, behaviors, et cetera. So great point there as well. Stick around if you have additional questions that you want to ask us, or drop it into the chat, or drop it on the discussion board that Janae has developed as well, and ask your community members as well. Have a fantastic day. Remember that the Twitter assignment is due before class on Wednesday. Let us know if you have questions about that. We both have office hours before the assignment is due, so feel free to sign up for those if you need us. Have a fantastic day. Take care, all. Bye. Lots of things we're learning.
I actually did have a question.
Come on.
So I was looking at your example of like the Twitter thread, and like I noticed that like it was like real connected and different things like that. So my question is about like the physical turn-in of the assignment. Like, will we use Twitter and then maybe take a screenshot, or do we just create it in a Word document? Like, how do you want it turned into you?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. It's a great question, and people have done it a variety of ways before. So some folks have made like a shell Twitter account and have just kind of posted it to nobody in the world, and they've screenshot it.
Okay.
But it's totally, absolutely fine to put it in a Word document, and we've asked for an upload so that you're not putting it directly into the box. That's the only time that can get really like hairy around like how to upload it. So if you do want to put it in a Word doc, you might say like tweet 1, tweet 2, or something like that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicholas.
Mhm.
Other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Lots of folks on here.
For the assignment, does it need to be like, do we need to include like scholarly like links, like how you have on your like example, or can it be from our own knowledge of like what we know? Like obviously like we're gonna have to like do research and like have like, I don't know, like something from like the New York Times or like the CDC, but do we have to include those links, or should we like be coming up, or like, I don't know, like is the creative like flow like up to us, or is there certain criteria?
So on the assignment tab that I've created now on the syllabus, and then within the assignments on Canvas, there's a few more criteria that we've included just to kind of help you to get some guidelines. But the link that we're asking you to send can be literally from the New York Times, it can be from the CDC, or it can be like an academic paper like I did. And I explained when I about this specific thread. This thread was about academic papers, but I also did one with just media. I also did one with just like fun links and stuff like that. So a thread does not have to be about academic papers at all. You can choose to include whatever link to whatever document you want. It's really about who you're targeting. So if you are targeting a scientific community, then sure, use an academic paper. If you're targeting Detroiters by and large, where 10% of the population has graduated high school, like that, or sorry, not high school, college, that's probably not the level that you would want to be at.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I see Mega's hand is raised. Mega, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to clarify that we can choose the audience of the tweet.
Yes. So again, it is Detroiters, right? So like the idea is like you're trying to get, ultimately you're going to reach Detroiters for your final assignment. So let me say that. I always have Detroiters in my mind. That's my population. But you can choose to say, here are the group of people for whom I'm targeting to wear this mask. Who are these people? So as long as you give some sort of nod as to who those folks are, that can help us to evaluate it accordingly.
So it could be like University of Michigan students?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Other folks? Jackson, thumbs up. Anybody else got a question, comment, concern, or you're all just waiting for the one question that someone's going to ask? That's perfect. You're welcome, Bashaka.
Hey, Dr. Anderson, I saw that you created a lot of different like discussions, like topics, for lack of a better word. For the one that says general get my life together, what type of things do you like what we post in that one? I was just curious to know.
You know, I think, for example, Janae had relayed a question that someone had asked about, like, I don't even remember at this point, but something around like, how do I don't know. Do you remember, Janae? Okay, long story short, if you're just like, yo, I want to graduate and like, I don't know what I'm going to do after that, that would be a great point in which to ask that question. Or like how, it was something, Janae, it was like, how do I form relationships or like community? That's what it was. So like essentially.
It was something that you said. Yeah, it was something that you texted me or emailed me. Yeah. I forgot what it was, but it was inspired by Takira.
Yeah, so it was you. You are the inspiration for that. Of just like, how do I form community? How do I get like my life together essentially in grad school during a global pandemic?
Okay. So. I was just curious. Like they were popping up on my phone the other day, and then I saw that one. I was like, I wonder what we would put in that. That's all. Yeah. And then real quick, Janae, I know you said to put your unique name for the Kahoot. Yeah. I had to hop off my iPad and hop on my phone. So mine says TA Bond 2, just so you know for this one.
Okay.
That's good. All I wanted.
Okay. Thank you so much.
See you Wednesday.
All right. Take care. I'm just reading through all the.
Oh, yeah.
Look at all those props for future Dr. Beth. Yes. Is the lit review assignment still due tonight? let me stop recording.
Oh, right.